Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, as the official treasurer here, I've been asked to call this meeting to order with the following announcement. Pursuant to the applicable law and his determination that attendance by remote means is necessary because an in-person meeting is not practical nor prudent due to the declared public health disaster caused by COVID-19. This meeting was conducted by video conference. The meeting was recorded, is available at downtown Hyde Park Chicago.com and on YouTube. Then calling on Rod.
Okay. And I will be brief about explanation of the committee and the rules for the committee. This is a meeting of the SSA number 61 Hyde Park Finance Committee meeting. In terms of what this committee does is it discusses the finances, which are then presented at the full commissioners meeting. In terms of the rules, what we'd like to do during the committee meeting is have the people on the agenda go through their presentation. And then after that, we'll have questions from the audience. The commissioners can pretty much question at any time, but we would ask that the audience and other members hold their questions to the question and answer period. So those are the rules. And first up, Isaac.
Yes, sir.
I have the screen in share mode. So as soon as you're ready to pull up.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second. All righty. So good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Pray everybody's doing well. So as of January the 31st, 1 month into the fiscal year, you had a total of 124,151 compared to 56,545. And that's due to receiving tax receipts in December 30th. And then we received tax receipts in the month of January. As you can see, our accounts receivable number is going down because we have started to receive tax receipts. So it's down to 221 compared to 294. So total assets of 346,114 compared to 351,021. Coming down to our liabilities, accounts payables at 5,492 compared to 17,805. And deferred revenue 272,688 due to SECC. So that's just 1 month. So we are current with reimbursing SECC. So total liabilities at 284,325. Temporary restricted is at 69,528. Net surplus. So the reason why that is negative right now is because the receipts we received in January were for 2022 and not for 2023. So as you're going to see next on the statement of activities, budget versus actual, we reflect zero tax dollars for the year 2023. And so we just had expenses come through of 7,739. So total net assets at 61,789. So net assets, liabilities gives you 346,114. And that's for your statement of financial position. So before we go to the budget versus actual, any questions? All righty. So if not, we'll move over to that. So for 1 month ended, January 31st, as you see right here, as I mentioned to you, so we've not started to receive tax dollars for 2023. So we're still receiving dollars from 2022. So that's why cash flow this in 2023 is going to be a whole lot better because we're collecting for 2 years rather than just 1 year. All right. So on a monthly basis, if we prorated what our total levy is for the year and our total levy, and help me correct me as well. So what I did was in the budget, I included the tax levy plus our carryover. Do you want to see that here or do you just want to see the tax levy? That's a question.
We're still getting some guidance in the city because it's going to reflect how we close out 2022. One of the things that the city has told us is that anything that's paid within the first 60 days of this year will reflect on 2022 as opposed to going into 2023. So
Okay, so
the
I need
short answer
clarity
to
on
that
that.
question, right, we need to figure all this out.
Okay, so,
Because the city is still giving us guidance on it.
okay, so this number right here on the budget, it includes the levy plus the carryover. So we will just be sensitive to how we move forward there. All right, so coming down to expenses, so 1.0, we just had 1,500 compared to a budget of 7,400. All right. For 2.0, we had no, so we just haven't received the invoices for the month of January, but the budget is 12,875. Same thing for 3.0, 4.0, and 5.0. So we just had our management expenses total of 928 compared to a budget of 1,400. And for our personnel, 5,311. So total expenses are 7,739. So for 1 month in. So month to date is our actual year to date because it's only for 1 month. And over here, you would just see for the total budget, you see total expenses, 490, 455. It matches what the total revenue is as well. So once I get a little bit more clarity on including the carryover, then we will adjust this number right here. But that's it for the month of January 31st, 2023. Any questions?
I have a question. Did I just hear someone say that we had 60 days to spend the money from last year? Well, isn't 60 days about
No,
next week?
no, that's not quite what I was saying.
Okay,
What I said was for any of the expenses that incurred in 2022, we have a 60-day time period to pay those, and they will reflect on the 2022 books.
Right. So what he's saying is, Nancy, is that so for January expenses that are coming in,
mhm.
now so from accrual basis, we will still match any cash related that goes out in 2023. Those expenses will still be reflected on 2022. All right. So like bills we received in December, but we just didn't pay until January or February, that's still going to come out of 2022's budget and not 2023's budget.
Okay, but don't I understand that according to the city of the laws and regulations of SSAs, that there's a certain portion of money that absolutely has to be spent or you lose it. And it seemed to me we have a lot more money around than from last year since it was collected just in January.
Well, I think from that standpoint, because the SSAs were they didn't have the tax dollars, so they could not spend those dollars.
I know.
Right. So from that standpoint, I don't think the city is going to penalize them for something they had no control over. And I think that's where the carryover comes in, Nancy.
Okay, so we're going to carry that all over.
Right.
Okay.
And then if you look right here, Nancy.
Yeah.
In this budget number right here.
Yeah.
So the levy was only like 200 and maybe 80 or 90,000.
Mhm.
And the remainder of that is carryover.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So it's a good question, Nancy.
I want to be a little more precise about the term carryover versus some of the guidance we've gotten from the city so far. The money that we finally started to get back in December, they kind of turned that late loss collection. And what the commissioners have to do is decide, Isaac, if you can go a little bit more to the left for the categories on this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And just go down some, just slowly, right? All those categories, we're going to have to decide where that money goes. So that money that's coming in is from late loss, and that's the current guidance. Sometimes this may change, but it would go into each of these categories. And that's part of the meetings that the commissioners and in the finance committee, we're going to have to put them within those categories. So the term late loss versus carryover, a better description of that is the money that's come in from late collections, late loss. You know, carryover has a whole different term in terms of we didn't spend that money and we're allowed to carry it forward into the next year. That's also being worked on as well. I was at a meeting this morning with a number of my SSA program manager colleagues, and we're all trying to figure out the same questions in terms of this money that's come in and how it needs to be allocated. So for that one, it's more or less stay tuned. There's more information to come.
Rod, since this is the last year of our term, my understanding is none of the money can be carried over, right?
Right.
George is nodding yes. Okay. So there is no care, whatever we call it. We have to spend everything this year, bottom line.
Right. You kind of jumped ahead to my presentation.
Sorry.
So I will answer that question at my point of
And
the
let me just
presentation.
make sure with our verbiage, everything we collect, we will spend.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
the part we don't collect, it was just lost then? Okay,
Yep, it's probably a loss collection. If we don't collect by the end of this calendar year, it would be considered a loss or a late collection. And then the city would determine if they would give us any late collections for the new SSA. We don't know how that works quite yet.
Right.
okay.
Okay. Any more questions from the commissioners?
Yes, please, Isaac. I need, in order to make the budget tracker as accurate as possible, I need to know what the starting bank account balance was on January 1 for this year. Since we have to expend everything this year, that starting bank balance needs to be added into, you know, the budget that we have to work with. And I believe I saw from the December 31st, they was in the $92,000 range. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so that would be your beginning cash number.
Were there any deposits in January, even if it was for 2022?
There were. I can get you that. I'll get you that number.
Right, because I
deposits.
didn't see them in your financial statements.
No, they're not going to be reflected
Right.
there because really this number right here, because that's the amount that we did not book towards revenue. We booked towards receivables.
Right. So yeah, it would be helpful to have those numbers because even though it's not part of this year's budget, is income that we have to spend. And so we need to keep track of it in the budget tracker so that we know that's part of our total expenses. I was trying to figure out why in January we started with 92,000. Then in February, I saw there was up to 124. And then in the detail of the financial report, there were no deposits. I was trying to figure out how could our bank account go up if there were no deposits. But you've explained that with the fact that it was deposits received from the prior year. But it would be very helpful if at least you could send me that information so I can incorporate it into the budget tracker. So
Absolutely.
it includes the whole picture.
Yep. I'll get you that number for total collections in January.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any more questions? George?
Okay. Here we go with the current budget tracker, updated for 2023 with our new budget numbers in place over here in the P column. So, sorry, I didn't mean to make it quite so big. And off to the edge, I've started a new little space here in the sort of gold color revenue detail to explain where the income is coming from. We know what our levies are, the carryover. These numbers here at the top, TIF rebate, late collections, these are straight from off of our budget submission to the city. These are not from any financial report. They're taken straight from our submitted budget. As revenue starts coming in, I'll list it here in the revenue details so we can keep track of that. It starts with the 92,000, which is what I was just asking Isaac about. That's our bank account as of January 1st. So we know we have that much money to carry forward in the coming year. And so everything then will be added to that as the year progresses, as we continue on.
Hey, George,
Yes,
can I make a recommendation? I love your spreadsheet. Where you have your revenue detail,
yes,
if you can just break that out and have 2022 revenue collected and then
perfect.
2023
perfect.
collected. So
Yes,
therefore we can,
absolutely.
and then
Absolutely.
that's gonna show you why we have a difference right there.
Absolutely. I love that. Definitely. So when you give me the detail, that's how I'll track it in here. So we have this running track of the income that's been coming in.
Okay.
So other than that, there's really not very much to report on for the year. We've already seen the numbers from Isaac. Bottom line is that we've spent 1.6% of our budget, and the year has barely gotten started. That number will change. Any questions about this? Anything I should try to explain? If not, then I'll turn it back over to Rod. My camera is acting up.
Yes, you're flashing.
There we go. It's been doing that recently.
Okay. Some of the questions that some of you all were asking or wondered about in terms of the SSA sunsetting. Yes, Greg, the SSA will sunset at the end of this year. For the commissioners, that means all of your terms also end. So what does sunsetting mean? It means a hard stop to our SSA. Our current one goes away and we begin anew. There is no legacy carryover, especially in the way of finance. So whatever monies that we're getting in from the city in terms of tax revenue, from the late collections that are now going in, and the TIF that George showed there, we have to spend all of that by the end of this year, or that money will be forfeited. So that's more or less our job. Diane and I, Raymond, at the SECC, along with board members and with the commissioners, to determine how best to use that money in a prudent way in front of, for the taxpayer. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and this will also come up in the commissioners meeting next month, is the extending of all of our vendor contracts. Usually our contracts go for about a year. Some of them are shorter, but it's probably easier just to extend the current contracts. They will come in with revised numbers in terms of cost. So what I've asked all of our vendors to do is extend their contracts through the end of the year. And I will present those contracts for approval next month. Some of the RFPs I've already started to work with. George, you had sent over the median for Lake Park. So I've asked our vendor to revisit that and resubmit that. I'm starting the talks with the art near the viaducts. So we will be able to get some more information and probably be able to go forward with that. There's a couple of other things. Diane sent me something yesterday about, and talking, this is one of the same vendors we have, Clarence David, about doing some things on West 53rd Street. And I know Nichols Park has something with the front area with the bushes there. I know that they're looking at. So I'd like to talk with Nichols Park about that. So that covers about 4 of the 5 objectives we spoke about in the program committee meeting. The good news is I get to run an SSA this year. We're fully funded. And we have a lot of projects that are ready to go, some that have been delayed that we can now work on. Okay, any questions for me? George?
Just a quick question. Can you give us a status report on where our negotiation with the reconstitution consultant is going? Is that proceeding accordingly? Because that will be a big plug-in to the budget when it's approved, I assume.
Right. Diane signed the contract a week ago, Monday, and we are meeting with the consultant this Thursday to talk about the reconstitution and begin the process of kickoff meetings and information that the consultant would like from us to further the process. But that's going to start this week, and you all on the reconstitution committee, many of you all are here on this call. You'll start getting information early next week on that.
I was actually curious about it from a financial, budgeting standpoint. Do we pay them up front, or are they paid in multiple amounts over the course of the duration of the reconstitution?
I believe we pay, I need to look at that, so don't quote me on this, but I believe we pay multiple payments. We don't do an upfront payment of all of the cost. But I'll get back to you on that one. I just need to look over the contract again. Any other questions? Okay, Nancy, handing this back to you.
I think the next point is are there any questions from anybody on the committee, outside of the committee, or whatever? I think we're just at the question stage. Questions? Well, I think being as there are no questions, I guess I'm going to call for an adjournment.
Okay, it's at
Okay.
12:26 p.m. and I need to stop the recording.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.